Hey y'all, welcome to the Hot Rod Dad channel. Glad you came. Hope you stay. Like, subscribe, comment, share, etc., etc. I'm out here in the garage this evening and I'm just kind of trying on the steering wheel and the location for the steering column right here in the BLT. And honestly, I wasn't really going to do a video this week because I really didn't have anything ready. But the topic of this video kind of came to light this week. Actually, I've been thinking about this subject for the past couple of decades, honestly, but it resurfaced again this week, and I thought I'd do a video on it. And that is the fact that we, as an American people, need another Model T Ford. Now, I'm not talking about a actual literal reproduction of a Model T, but I'm going to share my thoughts about the subject with you. So y'all stay tuned and let's talk about it. So let's start out by digging into a little Model T history. So the first Model T rolled off the assembly line on October 1st, 1908. And between 1908 and May of 1927, when the main body of the BLT right here was built, there had been 15 million Model Ts produced. And to give you a little perspective of how popular they were, there was only about 120 million people living in the United States at that time. So that is quite a large number of Model Ts. And, Henry Ford's philosophy was he wanted to build a car cheap enough that his workers, every worker there, could afford to buy one. So his philosophy panned out, and it went down in history as being one of the most popular cars of all time. And in fact, it wasn't until the Volkswagen Beetle came along and knocked it out of the number one spot. So I actually remember that from when I was a kid, and I remember them talking about it on the radio. So the Volkswagen had knocked Model T out of being the most popular car in history. And that left a mark on my mind, I guess, at the time. But I remember that vividly. And, it's ironic that the car that knocked it out of its number one spot was another car that was considered to be a car of the people, mass produced, cheap, simple, and bulletproof. So we've kind of touched on what made the Model T Fords so popular. And in fact, Henry Ford's core tenets for the production of the Model Ts were that they were supposed to be cheap, affordable, simple, and bulletproof. He wanted everybody that bought one of his cars, even in the furthest corners of the United States, the tradesmen and the farmers that bought his cars, he wanted them to be able to work on that car out in the field, on the side of the road, wherever. But, the main thing is that he wanted them to be dependable so that they didn't have to work on them that often. But in the case that they did, he wanted the owner of that vehicle to be able to work on it himself. And we are so far departed from that philosophy now in the United States, and I'm sure other countries too, who works on their own cars anymore? Just a very few, just a handful of people. And they are so technologically laden with crap that we don't need anymore that honestly, the average Joe can't work on his own vehicle. So I think it's my philosophy that we need to get back to, a cheap, simple, bulletproof vehicle for the masses. And we've not had that option for a very long time in the United States. I have friends that ride me a lot about my approach to building hot rods. And they like to use LS motors in their trucks, and that's fine, to each their own. But they ride me quite a bit about being old school, and I'm not necessarily old school either. I think there was a period of time when we had the best balance of simplicity and technology. For me, that was in about the late 90s. The OBS style pickups from General Motors. We had electronic ignition, throttle body fuel injection, and it was simple enough technology that, the basic car mechanic, shade tree mechanic can work on his own stuff at home. So, like I said, I've got friends that ride me a lot about putting an LS in old Oscar over here. But it's got a simple small block with a quadrajet in it. And funny little story, we were out at a car show one time, and my buddy that loves LS engines had one in his new truck that he just got on the road, and he was needing it was giving him a little trouble idling. So he said, I'm going to have to take it home and get my tuner to come over and hook it up to the laptop and check it out. So I just happened to have one of those little mechanic screwdrivers, little small screwdriver in my pocket, and I said, "Here's my tuner," and I pulled that little screwdriver out of my pocket. But I knew that anything that came up with that truck, I could work on it in just about any parking lot, parts store parking lot, just about anything that come up on it. So that's kind of my philosophy with hot rods too. I kind of take the same approach that Henry Ford did with the Model Ts. And my criteria when I build a hot rod is it needs to be cheap, simple, and bulletproof. So when Ford announced a couple of years ago that they were coming out with a mini truck that was going to be a sub $20,000 price tag, I got excited for the first time in a long time for a new vehicle. It wasn't because it was just some phenomenal truck. It was because it felt like the manufacturers were starting to listen to the segment of the population that were demanding a cheap, simple vehicle again. In fact, it felt like they were listening to me personally. And I went to test drive one with the intention of putting in a pre-order. And I drove the truck, and, like I said, it wasn't a spectacular great vehicle. I'm sure they're very nice, very very dependable. I've heard mixed reviews about them, but I went with the intention of putting a pre-order in, and just for a daily driver. And I test drove the mule that they had there, and I wasn't overly impressed with it, but I liked it well enough that I was ready to order an Area 51 basic model pickup. And when we got back to the dealership, I told him what I wanted, and he said, "Well, that one's going to cost you about $24,000," because I wanted the gas burner. And I said, "What? How can that be? The base one is supposed to be under $20,000." So he told me then that the base model was going to be the hybrid. And that didn't make any sense to me at all, because you have double the operating systems in those little trucks. And I know just almost certainly that it costs more to produce that vehicle than it would to produce a standard gas model. But then it dawned on me later that they were getting subsidized by the government to push the hybrids, and it all made sense. So I told him to keep his hybrid. I didn't want one, and I left. Well, like I said in the intro, I'm not talking about a actual literal Model T Ford. What I'm talking about is a cheap, reliable vehicle for the masses. One that's mass produced, one that has not got tons of bells and whistles, just a bare bones basic vehicle, just basic transportation, especially trucks. In the late 80s and early 90s, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, you could buy a small Ranger or an S10 or, small pickup like that. And just a basic one without all the bells and whistles. And it would be, well under $10,000. In fact, the first new truck that I ever bought, and the The only new vehicle I've ever bought in my life was a 1988 Mazda B2000 pickup. And tax, title, and everything, that truck was $6,700. It's just a basic four-cylinder. It's actually carbureted still, and it's basic four-cylinder, 5-speed, which was cool because it had the overdrive, but it had no air conditioning in it, had no stereo in it. It did have carpet in it, which was a step above the Ranger and the S10. They had just a rubber mat, it had roll-up windows, just a basic bare bones pickup. And, we've not had that option in the United States for a very, very long time. In fact, they kind of dissuade you from taking that route. When I was a kid, the gold standard for young guys was they wanted a half-ton single cab short wheelbase pickup. And of course, everybody lowered them and did, all the custom things to them. But they start out most of the time with just a basic truck. And I've said for the past couple of decades that, the automakers have left a whole segment of the population, just left them behind, just forgot about them and don't even take them into consideration anymore. So Toyota announced just this last week that it is introducing a new pickup truck. It is called the IMV Zero, and it's very similar to the traditional Toyota Helix pickups that you see in other countries. Very much like the 70 series Land Cruiser. It's this version though is just a stripped down bare bones pickup truck, very adaptable. It's a flatbed unit, and like I said, it's very adaptable. You can put a box on the back, you can put a camper on the back, you can do all kinds of different things with it. And they showed it at one of the auto shows like that. But the best thing about this little pickup truck is it's slated to be right at the $10,000 mark. So now the bad news about the new Toyota. It's dog ugly, like I said, in my opinion. But again, I got excited about a new vehicle for the first time in a long time. Reason being, I thought, finally, somebody's listening to the segment of the population, much like myself, that wants a cheap, simple vehicle. And I got excited about that. But here's the bad news. It's likely not going to be offered in the United States. So every time I travel abroad, in other countries, I look at these neat little vehicles they have over there. And, a lot of them are very utilitarian and just basic. They drive a lot of crap too. But the new vehicles that they have over there, they have to make them cheap enough and affordable enough that, the poorer population can afford them. And, we hear a lot of clamor about global warming and climate change and what we can do for the environment and that kind of stuff. But most of the people that are out there that would be buying a cheap, simple car, they're keeping older vehicles on the road in most of the time not so great condition. So they're gross polluters and they're not very dependable. So wouldn't it make a whole lot more sense to offer a cheap, simple gas burner than to keep those old clunkers on the road? So I'm going to leave a link in the description below to the Motor Trend article about the new Toyota. Let me know what y'all think about it. I've already stated that I think it's dog ugly, but I might be inclined to buy one just so I can have a brand new vehicle that's dependable, that I can haul junk in, I can haul the garbage in, I can haul some lumber in, I can haul hot rod parts in it if I need to. I love the flatbed. Y'all know, I love flatbeds. It's the most useful vehicle I've ever had. So let me know what you think about it. Do we need another Model T Ford in the United States? Comment in the comment section below and let me know your thoughts about it. And until next time, y'all get out there and build something.